wait.
Fair enough. Okay, be sure to get the whole chicken, as this will provide a more accurate representation of what actually happens in nature. So what you need to do is take that chicken and lay him or her out in your backyard. Wait about a day, then go check on your fossil hopeful in the making. And you know what you'll find?
A rotten, smelly, fly-ridden pile of chicken bones with a stench that your dog won't be able to stand.
Be sure to take careful notes during the experiment. Then wait about another week, and then go check on your bones, and what you'll find is
a really, really rotten, smelly, fly-ridden, half-decayed pile of chicken bones with a stench that your parents won't be able to stand.
Then wait 2 more weeks.
If your parents and dog can endure that long.
And then what you'll find is
an extremely rotten, smelly, fly-ridden pile of dead chicken bone remains with a stench that your neighbors won't be able to stand.
Yeah. Then scoop up the remains, and also take a second chicken. This will be kind of a to demonstrate also a fresh, uncooked, whole raw chicken, and throw them both into the river of your choice.
Not your swimming pool.
Good point. And then go back after about 5 years and see if you've got a couple of fossil chickens. And guess what?
You won't find them at all. You see, to be fossilized, an animal needs to be buried rapidly with the right conditions and the right chemicals present. When this happens, fossilization can occur quite rapidly. Fossilization doesn't normally occur when a dead animal falls into a river. Bacteria and other scavengers will quickly consume the flesh of the creature, and even hard parts of the animal, like the bones, will only last a few months.
Let's take a look at a couple of interesting facts that give us clues as to what was happening when the dinosaurs were being fossilized. For one thing, fossils are normally found in what is called sedimentary rock layers. Sedimentary rock, in fact, covers about 75% of Earth's surface. This kind of rock, by and large, is formed when water mixes with sand, rock, dirt, or other similar materials and is deposited by water and then later hardens to form rock. You can kind of think of it like concrete. The right blend of materials gets jumbled together and then forms a hard rock. In many of these sedimentary rock layers, we find millions upon millions of fossils.
Now, while most of the time discussions of fossils focus on such vertebrates like dinosaurs, but in reality, the vast majority of fossils, over 90% of them that have been found, are marine-dwelling invertebrates like clams and corals. In fact, some have estimated that less than 1% of all fossils that have been found are vertebrates, that is, animals with a backbone.
So I would say that since marine creatures like clams and other sea creatures like that, they spend their time, generally speaking, in the water, unless they're at a seafood restaurant, of course. Are you saying that it would make sense to me that the sedimentary rock was formed with water present? So are you saying that dinosaurs and other fossils like that were formed in an ocean or river or something?
Well, not exactly. You see, in oceans and rivers today, we don't hear of massive fossilization occurring. So when we look at fossil graveyards around the world that have miles and miles of fossils containing many small and large animals that have been found, including the monstrous Brachiosaurus, we realize that something bigger must have been at work to form such incredible geological formations.
Unlike the proposed scenario that was mentioned earlier, we find incredible fossils that show signs of rapid burial. For example, here is a fish in the middle of swallowing another fish.
Obviously, that fish didn't take millions of years to eat its dinner. I sure don't take that long to eat mine. And clearly, this fossil had to be buried quickly before it had a chance to finish its dinner.
Here's one of the coolest fossils ever uncovered. It's a fossil of a nodosaur. It's related to the ankylosaur that you'll see on the picture on the right. This fossil is so well preserved that it doesn't take much to imagine this creature alive and walking around. The fossil must have been buried quickly to preserve such incredible details.
And here's a marine reptile called the ichthyosaur that was fossilized in the middle of giving birth. This clearly illustrates that either the fossil had a painfully slow birth or the reptile was fossilized very quickly.
We also find in many places on Earth fossils of dinosaur footprints. Here's one that was found just a couple of weeks ago by a 4-year-old girl in the UK. And having fossil footprints is an excellent example that shows that fossils must have been formed quickly, because if you go to the beach, you know that your footprints don't normally last very long at all. Even in clay mud, they will quickly be destroyed by rain, wind, and other creatures. Having dinosaur footprints is an awesome evidence of a rapid formation of fossils. We also find fossils of jellyfish, worms, flowers, leaves, fish eggs, dinosaur eggs, and many other delicate organisms. In the minds of many scientists, such fossils are a mystery as they disintegrate away rapidly. This reality demonstrates that these creatures would have had to have been buried swiftly by mud sediments and preserved before they had a chance to be eaten or decay away.
Now, since we've already touched on the world of geology, the study of Earth's surfaces, let me make a brief point about the layers that we find fossils in. If you've ever traveled to the western U.S. or up north to places that have mountains and rocks, unlike here in Florida, you will notice layers or lines in the sides of the rocks that look like pancakes stacked on top of each other.
Aside from making my mouth water, what's your point?
Some propose that the layers we find were laid down one layer at a time. One layer with its fossils formed in a flood or a mudslide, then a couple 100,000 or million years later, another layer formed with its float from another flood or mudslide. But look at these layers and see if that makes any sense.
Neat. I'm looking. What do I see?
If one layer were laid down a long time after the layer below it, we should find significant erosion marks in between the layers. Wind and rain would cause sand and bits of sediment to erode from the rock. So, over thousands of years, we would expect to see a layer that looks more like this. But instead, what we end up finding are layers like this.
Ah, good point. So basically you're saying that they're almost perfectly smooth in between each layer, like there was not a significant amount of time between when each layer was laid down. So ask yourself, what makes more scientific sense? That one layer was laid down at a time over a long period of time, or that the layers were laid down in a much shorter time frame? Again, we could spend a whole presentation on this topic alone, but hopefully this will spark your curiosity to investigate further.
So now, can we get to the question that everyone is wondering right now?
When is dinner?
No, I meant the question, where did the dinosaurs go? I mean, we obviously don't have them in our local zoo.
Okay, first you have to ask, are they all really dead? But for the sake of this discussion, we'll just assume that all of the dinosaurs have died. How they died is a matter of historical science debate, and in part depends on your worldview. Did they die of overeating?
What?
Undereating? Or smoking?
Not too long ago, we went to a traveling dinosaur exhibit that the Jacksonville Zoo hosted called Dinosauria. There were some pretty cool dinosaur replicas there, along with numerous displays talking about what may have happened to the dinosaurs and such. One popular idea that was promoted there was the asteroid hypothesis. This hypothesis theorizes that an asteroid hit Earth around Mexico. They say, quote, the vaporized asteroid dust and debris blocked out the sun's rays. Many plants died. This caused a collapse of the food chain all the way to the dinosaurs.
However, there's more to this idea that we should examine. First, they claim that we can find a thin layer of uridium, a substance sometimes found in asteroids, in rock layers around the world. And they also say that there's an asteroid impact crater near the Gulf of Mexico. But what does the evidence really point to?
Using observational science, we can all go and see the deep impact depression near Mexico, and we can see that there's uridium in some rock layers around the world. However, the meteor killed the dinos interpretation of that evidence is just that, one interpretation. It's important to also realize that uridium can be produced by volcanic eruptions. Plus, let's think about the implications of a hypothesis that would claim that the asteroid debris blocked out the sun's rays for over 2 years on planet Earth.
To me, it makes little sense that crocodiles and snakes and other sensitive creatures like frogs and butterflies would have survived a catastrophe that supposedly wiped out the dinosaurs. For example, we find animals, butterflies like this in the fossil record with dinosaurs.
Looks like butterflies we see today.
Yes, but that also means that the asteroid idea doesn't really line up with the evidence, because if you know a little bit about butterflies, they're ectothermic, which means that they rely on Earth's heat, the sun's heat, to regulate their body's temperature. So if, as some theorize, that the sun was blocked by the asteroid debris for up to 2 years, why weren't the butterflies and other sensitive creatures changed or killed off, changed in some major way or killed off as well?
But that leaves a second idea about where some believe dinosaurs went. Some researchers do not believe that dinosaurs as we know of them are still alive, but they claim, as this sign claims, quote, are dinosaurs really gone? There may still be dinosaurs living among us. The secret is out. Birds are dinosaurs. It appears that the reign of the dinosaurs hasn't come to an end. They fill our skies and are fluttering about in the trees outside for us to see firsthand, end quote.
Really? Well, this is one mainstream idea about how the dinosaurs disappeared. They turned into birds. It may seem silly to some, but this is one of the leading ideas you will hear from science articles and at museums.
Interesting idea, but let's examine the science. Here's a model dinosaur from the zoo called Therizinosaurus, or however you say that. Well, on the sign it says that this dinosaur's most notable feature are its claws, which the claws definitely are unique and amazing and unusual, but I think the strangest thing about this dinosaur model is the fluff feathers on the model. What's up with feathers on a dinosaur?
Well, keep in mind that when we see drawings or reconstructions of dinosaurs, there's a lot of room for artist interpretation. According to prehistoricwildlife.com, quote, there is no direct evidence to support the existence of feathers on Therizinosaurus.
So why will you find that this dinosaur is often portrayed with feathers? Well, here's a picture by another artist that was trying to draw the same dinosaur, and here's the reasons they gave for drawing the dinosaur with feathers. Quote, Therizinosaurus. Very speculative, but that's the best kind of dino art, right? Right? I wanted it to look like an animal that could actually exist. I don't know if I succeeded. Feels like the proportions might be a bit off. Hard to say with all those feathers. Yeah, I made mine 100% fluff. Quite possibly they weren't all fluffy, but in my head they were. The closest animal I can think of would be the giant ground sloth, and they were apparently super furry, so hey, why not? End quote.
The point is that we need to realize that many of those who have a mainstream worldview come to a fossil with their preconceived ideas in mind, and then they try to fit their view into the evidence. An artist's worldview plays a big part in how they try to make dinosaurs look, even if the fossils don't represent or support such views.
Despite the claims of many that dinosaurs evolved into birds, the differences between dinosaurs and birds are huge.
Well, first and probably the most obvious difference between these two creatures is flight. It took people a long time to discover how to actually fly. Flight is not a random accident, but rather it is a specially designed creation. Birds are specifically designed with all the needed components for flight. The all-important feathers are vastly different than scales of dinosaurs, and they're a crucial part of flight. Scales simply form a continuous sheet covering the reptile's body, whereas feathers individually grow from follicles in the bird's skin. A bird's feather is made up of an intricate interlocking pattern of tiny hook-like barbs and barbules that, if unzipped, can become reattached by the bird's beak, kind of like Velcro. Scales have none of these amazing features.
Also, most reptiles have lungs that breathe in similar to how we breathe. However, the avian lung uses 9 air sacs to continually force the air in a one-directional looped pathway. If you tried to change a reptile's lungs into a bird's lungs, the poor creature would suffocate. Also, many other differences could be listed, including wings versus claws, beaks versus jaws, bone configuration, body size, tail size, preening gland of birds, how body heat is regulated, and many more.
With these differences we've discussed, we leave you to decide. Does it make more sense that these creatures are related, or does it make more sense that instead each was created with amazing design by an intelligent creator?
So what about the famous Archaeopteryx fossil? Some have claimed that this fossil shows a link between dinosaurs and birds. Well, to be concise, if you've ever heard about any supposed transition between the two, realize that our research has convinced us that it will either be a dinosaur, a bird, or a fraud. Though Archaeopteryx is very, very clearly just a bird, some have tried to play up on some of its unusual features, like its teeth, long tail, and claws on its wings.
However, did you know that the bat has both claws on its wings and teeth? And certain birds living today, like the ostrich and juvenile Hoatzin bird, also have claws on their wings. And there's a whole group of extinct fossil birds that had teeth. So I think, to me, it should be obvious that teeth and claws do not automatically mean dinosaur. Additionally, Archaeopteryx's tail was covered with feathers and was only around 4 or 5 inches long, whereas many theropod dinosaurs' tails were 4 or 5 feet long and covered with scales.
When carefully examining the evidence, Archaeopteryx turns out to simply be a unique bird that is now extinct. Again, just as before, an artist's worldview can make a huge difference between how they portray this animal to the public. Using the same fossils, one artist may present the fossil in this way or in this way. Because fossils are normally only bones and occasionally skin impressions, there's a lot of room for artistic license. And remember that artistic license is not the same thing as scientific fact. Dr. Alan Fiducia from the University of North Carolina once pointedly stated, quote, "Paleontologists have tried to turn Archaeopteryx into an earthbound feathered dinosaur, but it's not. It's a bird, a perching bird, and no amount of paleobabble is going to change that," end quote.
Now, here is a crazy looking dinosaur that was also at the zoo called Dakotaraptor. Now, you would think to make such a crazy looking dinosaur, you would have ample proof that this dinosaur had feathers. Well, such is not the case. According to an article from SmithsonianMag.com, quote, one of the most striking features of the Dakotaraptor fossil is a series of tiny bumps on its forearm, which they claim may have supported feathers.
So get this, it's not that they found this dinosaur with a bunch of feathers on the dinosaur. Rather, they found bumps on the arm that they claimed were attached to feathers.
Bumps. All that fluff from bumps?
Hard to believe, but again, this is where the artist's worldview comes into play, not observable science. Not only do some scientists believe that these bumps on the bone have nothing to do with feathers, there's nothing on this replica or anything else that I've researched that justifies why they put feathers on the rest of the body or on the tail.
The truth of this hard science is that there were absolutely no feathers found with this fossil dinosaur. This is only what the artist wanted to put on the dinosaur.
In other words, there has not been one authenticated feathered dinosaur fossil ever found. In an open letter to National Geographic, Dr. Storrs Olson, then curator of birds at the Smithsonian's Natural History Museum, described feathered dinosaurs displayed in one exhibit at National Geographic as, quote, simply imaginary and having, quote, no place outside of science fiction. And he also accused National Geographic of advocating dino-to-bird evolution, something he labeled as, quote, one of the grander scientific hoaxes of our age.
Now, if dinosaurs had some kind of feathers or fluff, that would not be an impossibility, as again, similarities do not necessarily mean that the animals are related. However, the problem I have with this kind of dinosaur is that, with this imaginary reconstruction, is that